You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional coach and matchmaker. If you listen to this last episode, you may have heard me ponder and contemplate this term matchmaker, because while I say that's what I do, I don't really fully identify with that term. More so, I am interested in midwifing relationships, growth-oriented, elevating, evolutionary types of love. If you haven't lately, go to wedeepen.com. You can see all the upcoming experiences, social transformational events that have been curated with that intention of mine, more meaningful, healthy, loving relationships worldwide. It's our time. You know, we've just entered 2024. If you're listening to this and it's, you know, we're far into 2024, welcome. You've arrived and it's a perfect time for you to listen to this show. I see that, you know, for the past decade, about a decade ago was when TED Talks became popular, is when this influx of information that we started to get access to. Over the past decade, authentic relating, studying love, doing transformational work have become a trend. And I'm happy for it. Like, let's trend it even further. And so there is this rightness, this readiness for us to get relationship right. It's not that we've been getting it wrong, but doing it in more of an authentic, true to ourselves, not folding or repressing or suppressing any pieces of us to be in connection with another. Today, we're going to dive into a conversation about dating, about navigating love and relationships. And I'm super excited to share my guest with you, Elizabeth Willis. Before I introduce her, I want to remind you a way to support this podcast. If you've listened before, if you're listening today and you're getting something from this episode, please do subscribe, like, rate, comment, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it, helps me continuing to host it. Also, it helps bring more people into the web, what I call it, like the web, Christina Weber. It helps to bring more people into this web of connection and togetherness. We Deepen also operates the Love Club, which we are in the first cohort. We have 22 people in a 6-month intimacy accelerator that includes peer-to-peer matchmaking, comprehensive relationship education, and accountability to one's love goals. And we're a little bit over a month into the program, and the expansiveness of it. We have people ranging from age 30 to 87 in this first cohort. I know, right? Powerful 87. Yes. I'll throw this out there. If you know a man, I know this is actually a good challenge for anyone listening. If you know a man who is in his later years, has done a bunch of growth work and is vibrancy and energetic and exciting, there's this beautiful woman, Wowza. You know, she's the one who's 87 in the Love Club. Shout out Wowza. I know you're like, I didn't expect to shout you out right now in this moment, but Wowza she has given us possibility. Like, wow, to be 87, she is reframing how we view age. I'm pro age. I like aging. I become more wise year after year. And she is so open and ready for love. She giggles, her one thing is that, when she's connecting with men, she wants to more know, like, what do they think about her age? Because I don't know. Is there another 87-year-old man that can match a vibrant woman like that? If you know of one, reach out. If you know of a man, I mean, I think that he could be in 70s, 80s, 90s. That would be a fun matchmaking project to share with you. I also, instead of, I wonder if you guys can hear those sirens outside. I don't know. Here in Austin, Texas, actually in a beautiful studio. I'm in Upgrade Lab studio, Dave Asprey's office today. Anywho, back to Wowza. If you have a man that's coming to light, reach out to me, send me a message. Let's play matchmaker together. Yeah, it's more of like I'm doing intuitive introductions. I'm collecting information through experience through this 6-month accelerator program with growth-minded people who are at the top of their game. A lot of the people that I work with, and if you're listening to this podcast, you may be one of them, are leaders of the conscious movement. And I've heard, and I've taken this on, I love this. They've come to me and they said, Christina, you're the one. We're at the forefront of this tipping point of this, if we want to call it an awakening, as they're, I have some of the top psychotherapists and, in the United States, those who are leading the expansion of psychedelic treatment and, reframing how we look at mental health, longevity. So check out the Love Club, check out wedeepen.com. Come and join us in person for experiences. We have stuff happening Miami, Austin, LA, New York City, and we're going to be populating with more experiences for you in the time to come. Excitingly, if you are listening to this podcast before February 13th, and you happen to be in the Miami area, my guest today, Elizabeth, is hosting an Enlightenment in the bedroom. It's how we first met. I heard about her program and the work that she's doing in the Miami area specifically. I love online gatherings, and I think we can learn a lot from, accessing the tool of Zoom. But there's nothing better than being in person together and hearing that Miami is now populating or becoming popular for, this conscious movement. There's a lot of erotic wellness and health and, conscious gatherings there. This one is, just near and dear to my heart because I love when people come together to study love. And when Elizabeth got on the phone a couple of weeks ago and I heard about her credentials, her passion for teaching, intimacy, and also her own personal story and her willingness to share about how she personally navigates dating, I was like, yes, come and do a podcast episode with me and let's continue to work together. So Elizabeth, welcome to Deepen with Christina.
Thank you so much. What a delicious introduction. So nice to be here.
So nice to be. Let's start with Enlightenment in the bedroom. What could someone expect from that program?
Great. That's a great question. So Enlightenment in the Bedroom is a global event. And the purpose of Enlightenment in the Bedroom, we had our first event, our debut event in Miami on December 6th. At Inhale in Miami, Florida. And the purpose is to start creating a culture of conversation around raw topics that we all really want to talk about, but nobody really talks so much about it openly. And there are a host of beautiful experiences that are out there, medicine journeys, neo-tantra, tantra experiences where you can go in and you can experience polarity, you can work with eye gazing, you can do ecstatic dance. And Enlightenment in the Bedroom is not that. It is purposely and focused on having speakers, expert speakers on these topics, really creating stages for sexuality leaders in the community to bring their expertise, to bring their conversations so that we can open up and start having dialogue, which is really a safe space and sometimes a very edgy space for some people to dip their toes into talking about relationships and talking about intimacy. And it's really a great bridge for those people who are curious, but they don't want to have a tantric, neo-tantric experience. It's a great place for those who are in the community already, so they can network and they can meet others. And it's also a great place to meet other people and to mingle and to make connections, because you'll meet other like-minded people who are ready to get out there and talk. So
sounds like a great place for a sapiosexual.
Yeah, it would be. Absolutely. Absolutely. All kinds are welcome. And we have delicious topics. The topic that we're going to be talking about this February is how it's open relating meets celibacy. So we're talking about open relating. A woman from Miami, a local sexuality leader, is coming and sharing her personal experience in open relating. And then I have somebody else coming to speak about how he repatterned his dating experience by doing a feminine cleanse before he stepped into dating and met his current partner. So that is the theme for our February event.
Such juicy topics. I'm interested in discussing those topics. It's dating is at first. It's interesting. Open relating, I view. Isn't that dating?
Well, I think it's, in my mind, open relating in a monogamous relationship. So in a relationship that you and your partner decide to, it's not necessarily polyamory, but you and your partner decide to have open relationships. So I have experience in this with my last partner. We played in this space for a little bit, but you have the consent and you have the agreement, the consensual agreement between both partners in that monogamous relationship, that each one is going to individually explore other relationships, other sexual experiences, other experiences with somebody outside of the partnership.
Why would you deem that differently? Or why would you term that open relating versus polyamory?
I feel that polyamory, in my mind and my understanding, it's more of like a committed relationship with somebody else. And for me, open relating is more like you have the core, you have the monogamous relationship, and you're not necessarily committing to somebody else outside of the relationship.
But if you were to keep seeing somebody else, would that then make you poly?
I feel like it would put you into that category. I feel there's a lot of like gray space in between. I feel like open relating, in my experience, is like if you want to dabble in polyamory and you're not quite sure, you're not ready to commit and label yourself in that. I feel that open relating is in that vein.
It's an interesting thing. It's to me, I mean, I guess it's twofold. I little bit still view it as dating. And I also see it as once the people that I've seen do that successfully are rare. But because we connected through Relate Fest in some way, I know you weren't at Relate Fest, but Hans, our dear friend who connected us, he was there. That's how I met him. And there was one couple that was part of it, and they had been together, I think, at year 7, and they got together pretty young, and I believe in their 20s, maybe year 7 together. They both realized that neither of them had like such tightness around it being, only them being with each other in a sexual, intimate, emotional way. And so they began to date others. I actually think they would probably say they're openly relating and use that terminology instead of poly. Maybe if a new relationship came in, they might deem it as that, but they also have 2 teenage children, like new teenager children, and they do it so well. But it's, it's almost the open relating. Like that's my mind in the in-between stage, because you said that you and your previous partner did it, but then the relationship ended. Right. Because it depends what's your intention. I know a lot of people desire longevity. Like they think that they want to meet their life partner. I want to meet somebody and be together with them and build with them. And I'm curious around, I just as we unpack it, because who owns the truth? We're all just trying to figure everything out and have our own experiences, and what's right for me might not be right for you, and vice versa. So this is a explorational conversation. But that, if you were so from my experience, my partner, we dated for 9 months, and it was pretty much kind of open relating. He was dating other people. I was dating other people. And then, we took a break from actually even seeing we took a break from seeing each other. I said no contact, 90 days. And then now have come back together, and we're in a exclusive relationship, and we are open in a sense of, like exploring erotic wellness together, and also, but being like real and authentic. And, if he's attracted to somebody else, so I'm attracted to somebody else. He actually is fine with, I could go do whatever I want with somebody else. He just wants me to tell him. For me, I'm more of, why I really trust this human is he's really good with boundaries. That's one reason why I feel so safe in this relationship. But from an openness, there's only so much time that we have as humans. Time is an illusion, and time is also, energy is, I don't want to say we can expand into more energy, but when you have a mission this lifetime, something to accomplish, sometimes I think of all this relating, and we're all in the process. I'm like, whoa, and not to be dramatic, let's go save the world. There's wars happening. We have the power through love to make a difference. Let's not just be rummaging around in multiple different bedrooms and, laying down and sleeping in. Let's go be effective with our time as well. So, I think the open relating I think you can learn something. There's a transformational aspect to it, so I'm just, wondering, based upon your experience in the past of having a relationship that was open, and now you're, I believe, starting a new relationship. How would you do it next time? Would you do the same thing? Where are you at personally with the idea of open relating?
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I appreciate the question. I want to go back because I don't personally feel that dating is open relating. For me, I feel that the relationship, the core relationship, and you're not seeing my hands, but it's like I'm creating like a pillar with my hands. So like the core relationship is something that is strong, is something that is built, and the foundation is built. And then it's the decision to explore, to use your beautiful term, erotic wellness, to explore, and open relating gives that permission to begin to, okay, should we open this relationship? Should we keep this relationship closed, or should we open this relationship and explore? And I do feel, for me, it was a time when I explored open relating. In my past relationship, we did open the relationship around 2.5 years in. And it was actually triggered by him, I would say, cheating or speaking with other women without talking to me early on in the relationship. And so that really severed the trust. But at the same time, it brought this erotic arousal, because it was like, oh, that's also a turn on, that, he is attracted to other women and I might be attracted to other men. So once we rebuilt the trust, because to open relate in this sense, to open a relationship that's monogamous and closed, there has to be a deep level of trust. So once we rebuilt the deep level of trust, we set the intentions of what were the reasons why we would each be open relating. And then we opened the relationship and we began that exploration. And it really does, I forget exactly what your question was, but I think it was in line with what my experience was. And it really does evoke within all of your shadows when you begin to open relate. And so that's why I feel like it's different than dating, because I feel like with dating, you don't have that deep intimacy yet with your partner. You're just kind of, you might have a deep relationship when you're dating, and that might be the kind of person you are, where you go in deep and they go in deep. But if I feel that with this, with open relating, it's more, it comes from a relationship that's already established in intimacy and in depth. And from there you choose, because the potential that you have for growth, both individually and in your relationship, once you have established already that intimacy and that communication and that trust, is huge. So it would be the conversation of, I'm, interested in this person. I would like, I'm going to go on a date with them. I went on a date, okay, how much do I want to hear about it? Okay, I want to hear everything. Oh, I'm hearing everything. Okay, I'm feeling jealous. I'm feeling really excited for you. Oh my God, that's great. It sounds like so much fun. I'm also feeling threads of like, fear. Like, are you going to be with this person? Do you like her more than me? I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling a little inadequate. Did you like sex with her more than you like sex with me? So it brings up all of these things, and to have the container of the relationship already set to be able to have those deep conversations, for me is the purpose of open relating. So it's not just the exploration of the act, but it's also the evolution of growth, of the deepening of the intimacy of that monogamous relationship.
And it does require definitely time and attention. I wouldn't suggest that two people who are going through a phase of building a business or traveling a ton, or maybe it's more of like contain it. Like, let's wrap a container, a time frame around this as a couple, that let's maybe explore this for 6 months, and then do some more deep work around it before, and decide, like, do we want to go back out and do it? What did we learn from it? You said something about one of the reasons that do it is that it's shadow work. I believe you use, like, it gives you access to for you to be able to see some of your shadows. Right. What would you say is the benefit of that? Because some people might listen like, why do I need, like, I don't need to see that. What is the benefit of seeing those things, and how has that supported? Why was that useful for you?
Great question. I don't know if you hear the leaf blower outside, but I live in South Florida, and we're like the epicenter of leaf blowers. So, in case you hear that. So shadow work. So shadows are, I do a lot of work with archetypes as well. If you look at an archetype, which is the understanding that we are all playing different roles, and when we look at archetypes, we see layers of our subconscious, and the roles of archetypes help us to access those layers of our subconscious, because we play out these different roles throughout the day in our life, consciously and unconsciously. And if we look at archetypes have a shadow side, they have a dark side, they have a darkness to them. And then they also have more of like an illuminated lighter side. And both of these pieces create the whole character, create the whole role. So using the example that I spoke about before, when my partner shared with me his experience when he went out and he open related, it brought up what is more of that darkness inside of me. It was that jealousy. It was a fear of, now maybe you can really hear the leaf blower. It was, no, great. It was a fear of, am I going to lose him? It was an insecurity. And, these are really labeled as our darkness, but they're really, it's in a kind of like a scary place to go. Like, I don't really want to go there. I don't want to go to that thought. If I think of that thought, if I think of jealousy, will he leave me? So there's a little bit of thinking around that, but there's also unconscious patterns that we have that are triggered by these shadow sides because we have been avoiding them our whole life. So unless we recognize it, so I recognize my jealousy. So unless we recognize it, speak to it, it might be something we keep inside, and then we start to do the moves. Then we start to unconsciously, perhaps put up our armor and bring up our shells and start to say things that we don't necessarily mean. We start to pick fights because we start to feel a little bit of aggression because we want to grab their attention and bring them closer to us because we feel that they're leaving. We might be trying to, get their attention in different ways. So that's when these other shadow pieces of behavior come out, like manipulation, competition, and those pieces. So when we are aware of our shadows and we see them and we recognize them and we speak to them, we bring them into the relationship, and that deepens the intimacy. So intimacy in relationships can be really deep when we bring all of our pieces into the relationship, all of our shame, all of our fears, and so it becomes one, and I'm using my hands again, like one big whole sphere of that relationship. And that is where the depth is really, really created, is in that space.
So it's interesting if we think of a detachment theory,
right?
There's the avoidance. Mm-hmm. And I guess I just wonder about this level of play, because to some extent, it can kill a relationship. It's the death of a relationship. And you're playing with fire. As a human, just living, in this body, this lifetime, one would say, don't go and stand in front of a moving car. You might get hurt and die. So why, if you feel as though you're growing within a relationship and feels like a good relationship. Now, hands down, I've gone on rampage about everyone should break up at times because I think that, it takes a lot of growth and knowing of yourself to going through a process, like removing a lot of conditioning to get to a place where you're like, I'm actually really myself in this relationship, and I'm really enjoying me and the experience of being me when I'm with you. If the other person is truly, authentically, really experiencing or loving the experience of being authentically themselves in that relationship, the relationship is feeling good and alive and vibrant. Why would a couple be like, let's go stand in front of a moving car? Let's see if we could rip this thing apart. Like, why not preserve the relationship and protect the relationship? It's like, I wonder, and I know, like, this is why I think it's different phases of, where you're at, depending in your relational journey, what you want to experience this lifetime. I had Francesca Gentile, who is a kink educator, on the podcast a few times. She's an elder, and we talk about how, like, that each human sometimes needs a different concoction of hormonal release. And that's why, going and playing in these like BDS spaces, or, one great thing is when you get in relationship with a partner is like start to understand, what hormonal concoctional releases that they need. Some people want to go and put wingsuits on and jump off of mountaintops, and others are like, I don't want to jump off a mountaintop with a wingsuit on. That's not a desire of mine this lifetime. So it's interesting because why all of these, ways of doing things, like potential and possibility, there's this menu of life experience that you can have. How does one really know that that's actually their way or their path? And how could a couple potentially, they might kill their relationship if they went and played this way?
For sure. My relationship ended because of the open relating. Okay, so to back up, you began with attachment theory.
Yeah, because the avoidant is easy to, like, the avoidance, like, get me out of here. This is like, you're giving me all the evidence. Why am I going to stay in this? I'll go elsewhere.
Right. And, it's interesting because it was in the relationship that I was in. So I have both the anxious and the avoidant. I'm more of like the disorganized, but when I was in the relationship with my partner at the time, I wasn't quite tracking my anxious attachment in my body. I wasn't quite aware of it. It was something that was kind of really subdued. And when we began open relating, I remember after one experience with a man, it was the next day, and I was waiting. We had an intimate experience, and I was waiting. I woke up and I was like, felt that anxious attachment the next day. And I was like, he hasn't called. And then my partner hasn't called. And I just started to I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't felt this in like 3 years. Like, I don't know what, oh my gosh, this is still in me. Like, this pattern is still in me. So when you're in monogamous relationships and you're in relationships for a long period of time, your patterns, you can be aware of your patterns if you're in hindsight, it has actually really helped me to identify and really get to know that anxious attachment part of myself, because now in my current relationship, which is a baby relationship, and we're really like nurturing it and like just in that new relationship energy, I can see my anxious attachment coming up. I can actually feel it before it comes up. And so it's like that recognizing of that shadow that we were talking about. Like, you integrate it, you bring it closer to you, so that you can feel it more closely instead of like pushing it away. So for me, it really supported a massive part of my healing, but it does evoke that. So you have to be in agreement that it's going to evoke this stuff. And it is standing in the line of fire. It is, there are many different reasons for you can do it, because perhaps, your relationship might be in a space where it's stale and you're looking, you're curious to explore with other people. You're curious to explore sexually with other people. And it might be that space where you can go out and do things together and you could like reignite your love. There's also this understanding that we make these decisions in relationships, and then we set the intention, and then it's almost like, well, let's also let this energy move and let's see where it takes us, because we really have to allow love to flow through us, and we have to allow these experiences to happen. We have to follow the eros in the relationship, right? There's like eros that moves through relationships. There's an eros in our conversation right now that we're moving through. And so it's about moving through that. And you can feel when the eros in a relationship is really stagnant and stuck. And so that might be the opportunity to let's reignite this eros. Let's find this life force energy. Let's see where this is moving. Wow, I'm attracted to other people. That could be a signal that is where the eros is moving. I'm really afraid if you have sexual relations with somebody else. Okay, there's a fear, there's a shadow side. Let's go there. What can we do? How can we support this container and in this relationship so that we can, follow this eros, follow this energy in the relationship?
What would you say to somebody who's listening to this podcast and, they're feeling some stagnation inside of their relationship, but they're like, I don't feel as though open relating is my way to move the stagnant energy. What are some other ways that you would suggest that what are some other things that they could do?
Well, I'm not, it's kind of challenging because I don't know necessarily what they have experienced and what they haven't experienced, but I do feel that working and understanding and doing some polarity work is a beautiful place to start. Because that is evoking and learning that polarity and how to play that dance in a relationship is something that really invites the eros back and the electricity back into relationships. And that's something that you can do by yourself if your partner doesn't want to do it, because you can embody that without them, because you can lead them energetically. It's something that you and your partner can do together.
And when you say polarity work, does that mean that as a woman, if I want to do polarity work, I can go take, a sensual pole dancing class or join a feminine circle, or like what is polar, or to go take a David Data workshop? Like, what does polarity work mean?
Yeah, I would feel like it's more along the lines of like the David Data workshop too. If you're not familiar with polarity, to understand the basics of how polarity works, doing any sort of Tantra experience or Tantric workshop where you can begin to understand. And there's many Tantric workshops. I'm actually facilitating at one in a Fundamentals of Tantra workshop coming up in February. I'm assisting at one, and it is a no nudity experience for singles or couples. It's a full weekend immersion where you can come and you can learn about polarity. You can learn how you can embody the feminine and the masculine quality. Then the pole dancing, the tango dancing, all of these other pieces are supplemental pieces that you can do on your own to evoke these archetypes in your body.
When you say polarities, I get, I feel a little boxed or limited by masculine and feminine. I also see, there's a lot of self-shaming and other shaming around those terminologies as well. For me personally, and I know I'm a unique own energetic being, but I have put a lot of life force energy out in the world. I've spent a lot of time working, but I always feel as though I'm in my feminine. There's that idea of that, that when you go into work, you're in your masculine energy. And then before you go on a date, you should come home and make sure you light your candles so you can switch into your feminine and go out with the guy. And then sometimes guys will be like, oh, you're too much in your masculine, or a woman will be like, he's too feminine. Like this, it's like, I'm like, well, what does that even mean when you say like feminine or masculine? Like, I kind of want to break it down a little bit further, because like, I think a lot of people are just throwing these terms around, and again, using them to shame one another, make up what they believe they have in their head of what it means, but they're not expressing that. They're just labeling it a particular term, like, oh, I mean that, I want to do masculine and open the car door, or because he's masculine, I want him to like throw me up against the wall and fuck me. Like, what exactly do you mean by that? Or because, when we go out to dinner, she's asking so many questions that, she's not, or she won't let me wait to order the menu or like the things in the menu. And she wants to, say what she wants. And because I'm the man, I get to say I'm the leader and she's this. I feel like there's a lot of just confusion around that. Do you have any words that may help unpack and maybe even give your perspective on that, that lens of what I'm seeing?
For sure. I love that. And I do feel that. And I resonate with that. And there's this new trend. I do a lot of work with dating and repatterning your relationship so that you can attract a different type of partner. And there is a massive new trend in all the dating in the dating world that is to like be in your feminine to attract a man. And so it's almost like, I think it's funny because it's almost like, okay, like you said, I'm going to go home and I'm going to like do my hair and I'm going to like, okay, be really sweet now. And I feel like those are, so I think maybe it might be time to talk a little bit more about embodiment. So embodiment is the understanding that we learn things in our brain, and that's how we can receive information, and we find these delicious topics like polarity or open relating to refer to what we've been talking about. And we can find more information. We can find books about it. We can find other podcasts. We can suck this information because we're attracted to this information, and it goes into our mind. To bring our experience into our body is the embodiment of it. So it's more like you are experiencing it through your body. And I recognized this myself when I first started doing my work. And I'm a single mother of 2 children. and I would have these rage episodes, and I would like post all these things like all over my house, like, to get myself to pause and take a break. And I couldn't, like, I was like, I would catch myself like in the act, in the rage episode. I would catch myself maybe a little bit right when I started, and I slowly started catching myself like, a little bit earlier and earlier, but I couldn't, like, I was like, why it's all the Post-its are here. Like, why can't I stop? I know all this information. Like, why can't I do this? And so what embodiment really means is that it's more intuitive, and the response comes from your body, and you're able to feel the sensations of whatever that experience is bringing up in your body. So when we look at the feminine and we look at the masculine and we look at polarity, to me, it's the embodiment of it. It's not only the knowing of these archetypes, because they're different archetypes. So it's not only knowing that these archetypes exist, but it's embodying it and feeling what they feel like in your body, and recognizing your response to somebody else's behavior. So if a man opens the door for you, how does that feel in your body? Like, what does that evoke in your body? That evokes a feminine response of like, oh, he opened the door for me. Oh, that's so sweet. Right. So it evokes that. And can you feel that in your body? Can you feel that like giddiness that you all of a sudden like start to melt and like have this big smile because you feel cherished, because you feel loved? Right. So for me, that is what polarity is. It's an understanding of it, right? From the mind, understanding of it, but it's also an embodiment of moving and living through it. And we switch. So it's like, okay, he's deep in his feminine right now. Like, he is feeling something. And so what does he need from me? Okay, I am here, I'm present. And so I can feel him. And this is not about me. This is about him. I can hold space with him. So for me, that's kind of what polarity is. It's a more of an embodiment of it.
I like that. I like that reframe and the dropping in. I feel like that's even like the term when we use the word dropping in. It's like dropping in further, dropping into the full body experience. I know you do a lot of work with the nervous system.
Yes. And
that is an important element in dating, and also assessing, are you in the right relationship? Is this the right connection for you? I remember I came out of a relationship that it was a 3-month relationship that I had years ago. And coming out of it, when I would share with friends the experience that I had, they'd always find, he sounds like a narcissist. It sounds like a narcissist. And so I went and studied. I started reading Dr. Ramani's Should I Stay or Should I Go? Surviving a Relationship with a Narcissist. I lured Dr. Ramani close to me and had her speak at some events so I could unpack the experience that I had had. And I remember one of the things that I said, I believe I even posted it on social media after, like, find somebody who's good for your nervous system. And same with community, like find a community that's good for your nervous system, like be around people who are good for your nervous system. What, how has, more deeply understanding your own nervous system and working with your nervous system, how has that affected you? How has that affected your work? How do you guide people to understand? And I think it probably goes into a little the dropping into your body, because drop into your body is where you then are able to assess from that space.
For sure. Yeah. So the reason why we continue to attract the same partners over and over again is it's because it's a pattern in our nervous system that feels good to us. And so this is not new information, that if somebody is in front of you and it evokes a certain feeling inside of you, and it elicits those hormones, it elicits the cortisol, it drives you, that is like a connection that, okay, I really am interested in this person. I like this person. Your nervous system, your survival instinct response is kind of making the decision for you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for your nervous system to make a decision for an attraction to a partner. it's the understanding and the really getting to know and becoming intimate with your nervous system so that you can say, okay, here, a man has like approached me. I'm attracted to him. I'm feeling all the feels, like I'm really intensely feeling attracted to this person. My fight and flight has been activated, right? Okay. So you recognize that which part of your nervous system has been activated. Okay. My palms are getting sweaty. I'm starting to feel like some tingling on my throat. What do I need to do right now to down-regulate this? And so it's the act of learning how to track our patterns in our body. So the patterns come from our body, and then our words follow and our actions follow. But if you can get underneath that and you can begin to really connect more authentically to a regulated state, to where you are regulated and your vagus nerve is toned and you're fully regulated, and then you can make a decision like, okay, this person that I'm feeling like super attracted to, like I want to suck his face, he wants to suck my face, like that instant, right? Like almost like trauma bond attraction. This is really intense for me. What do I need right now to regulate so I can make a decision if I want to proceed in this relationship, if I want to continue with this? How am I going to continue in this relationship? And so it's really like that constant. It's constant. You're constantly repatterning. So you mentioned something about like how you want to pick people who have, a nervous system where your nervous system feels, regulated with, or how you want to be around people that your nervous system feels regulated with. And that's a beautiful piece, but you're outsourcing your regulation to other people. And we can't constantly outsource our regulation. We have to be able to track it inside of our body, and we have to be able to get real quiet and recognize what's happening. What do I need to regulate? What do I need to let my autonomic nervous system go back online? Because it naturally will do this if you give it the space to do it, if you give it the space to get quiet. If you are constantly reacting and moving in the snowball of energy that's been created, then before you know it, you're like in this like 8th month, tragic relationship, and everything ends up being a total catastrophe, which I've definitely done that before.
Okay, so let's give it a situation that may be happening. So say you're a woman and you really like a guy. He's handsome, charismatic. He's like the type of guy that you desire to be in relationship with. And he's open, he's available, he's single. And so all of this like excitement of like, oh my gosh, this is what I've always wanted. And so your nervous system in the presence of this person gets activated a bit. And let's say that these two people, the woman and the man, are both great. Like they're really good humans as well. How I think, in that you can say, okay, so I'm now experiencing, my nervous system is heightened. He's around, maybe he's like cooking dinner, he's around, but you're noticing it, or maybe you've just arrived. Usually it's like, I feel like it's that first moment of when you come back into connection with somebody after being away. So it's typically, you haven't warmed up yet. You've just entered the room. You're both entering the room. And so you're feeling this off, you don't really have the space to go and sit. I think this is a moment where vulnerability is like the edge. Mm. Because you can take what you're experiencing and you could share that with the other person.
Absolutely.
But the risk is always, what if he doesn't like me that much? What if I'm too eager? What if, men like the hunt? I don't want to let him know how much I like him right now. So those things are also going through the mind of, that's then creating even more of a heightened experience. How does one, and then I'll say, I'm giving this case study for like, the woman having it and the man, but and the man is activating it. But I've also, unpacked with many men who have been around these women who, are presenting as women they really want to be in relationship with. And, on that other perspective for them, they, it's such an edge for them to share their feelings. Like, what? You want me to tell her what I'm really experiencing right now in the moment? Like, I need to be the strong one and the leader one and to not do that. So how would you direct those experiences, or what would you tell somebody who's potentially in something like that?
Yeah, beautiful. So this almost brings back the polarity conversation and the understanding of the different archetypes and the characteristics of the archetypes. So the in the first scenario, if you were the woman and you're in this relationship and you see him and he's cooking dinner.
I want to pause real quick. Sure. You're not in a relationship.
Oh, you're not in a relationship.
That's what makes, I think, the higher trigger, because you're dating, and dating has ambiguity around it.
Right. So your insecurities are going to be really high. So one of the pieces to note in that first scenario, when you talked about, from the woman's perspective, is that he, the man, needs to feel your heart, because your heart, your open heart, is his compass. That is his direction. And so what you pointed to was beautiful, the vulnerability piece. The vulnerability is the sharing of your open heart. I'm feeling a little insecure right now. My hands are sweating because you look really cute making dinner for me. And I'm a little bit unsure of whether, you still like me or not, or something like that, right? So something cute and like that comes out. It's pure vulnerability. Recognizing also that your nervous system has been activated. So the discomfort, the way discomfort works when we're in uncomfortable situations, which happen throughout the day, is the discomfort will arise first in your body. And it is first comes through the sensations in your body. So we go underneath emotions, underneath feelings, to the sensations that are moving in your body. And this is what I teach with the Self Pleasure Modality. So I support people to repattern their nervous system through pleasure, through the Self Pleasure Modality. So you get underneath to the sensation. And when we have discomfort in our body, if it's too much for our body, we immediately bring it up and it goes into the mind. And then once it goes into the mind, if it's too much, those into the mind would be the thoughts of feeling insecure, right? I'm feeling insecure. I don't know if he likes me. That's into the mind. And then if it's too much for the mind, then we project it out onto the person. So projecting it out onto the person without vulnerability, without authenticity, might look something more like putting up a shell, putting up an armor around yourself, recognizing that maybe you are feeling insecure and maybe being quiet, maybe being, pulling away, maybe closing down. So again, like I said before, you're tracking it in your body. So you begin to track the sensations. You might not be able to catch those sensations because, again, most people are very numb, and we have to learn how to feel. And that's what I do, is I teach people how to feel. And so you learn how to feel the sensations in your body. You might not catch it at the moment when it's happening, but maybe perhaps you catch that thought of like, I'm feeling insecure. Okay, what does that feel like? Go back into my body. I feel those sensations for 90 seconds. Okay. And then you can choose to make a different response, right? That vulnerable response.
I have to tell a story. I in that relationship, that one that was I came out and started studying narcissism after that connection. There was a moment in it, and he in a tone said to me, I don't know if he said, "You're acting so insecure," or "You're insecure." And I replied, and I was like, "I am not insecure." And I walked away from the conversation and I Googled the definition of insecure. I'm like, what's the definition of insecure? And it's like, not feeling secure. I was like, yes, I'm insecure. This is true. This is true. But like the terms sometimes are like, no, I do not feel jealousy. No, I'm not envious. That's not how I feel. And the mind is blocking even the acknowledgement of it to start. But it was actually data once I did Google and was like, oh, I eased into it and I was like, you know what? I don't feel secure in this connection. And that became information for me that eventually it wasn't the right connection for me because I couldn't find the security inside of it.
Right. That's beautiful. And that is what we were talking about. We were talking about before about those shadow pieces. Like for me, my thing was in my relationships it was anger. Elizabeth, you're always angry. Right? Because I couldn't claim my anger. I couldn't claim that shadow part of myself. Now I love my anger. Like my anger comes and I feel it and I have a way to express it emotionally. And I'm like, now it's information. Like, what is it telling me? Like, okay, this is really good information. And so let me feel this and let me see what this information is. And then now I can make this decision. So, yeah.
Can you briefly tell us how you got into this level of knowledge and information around love and relating?
Absolutely. Are you familiar with human design?
Very, yeah.
So I'm a 4-1 generator. So I have this 1 in my profile and forever the 1 is the investigator. And I have a PhD in education. My background is in education. I've educated teachers and children for over 25 years. And so it's natural for me to step into educating adults around love and relationship because that is my passion. And I have always been where I find a topic and I just go. It's like I'm like a sponge and I go. And I was like, why? Is there something wrong with me? Like, what is this? And then I learned human design and I was like, oh, that's my 1. Perfect. So I have spent a life of really challenging relationships, a lot of toxic relationships. And I recognized probably about 7 years ago when my youngest daughter was born that I was the common thread in that toxicity of my relationships. And so I started to really step up and take responsibility and really break through many layers of my ego that I had up around me, protecting me, because it was so easy to blame men and to blame them. And so I had a lot of shame. Also, I come from a very traditional family. Everyone gets married. I was divorced really young. So I had a lot of shame around all of what I called these like, quote unquote, failed relationships. And I kept them in the shadows. And I started starting to explore and dedicate myself to my self-development. And I started by stepping into sexuality development. And I had no idea why I was enrolling in the course that I enrolled in, which now I own the school, the Institute New Paradigm Intimacy. And it was a school where it was a sexual development course. It taught us the Self Pleasure Modality. And that was Self Pleasure Modality is different than in Tantra. If you're listening and you're familiar with Tantra and you've been to any sort of Tantra retreat or experience, you might have experienced self-pleasure. And the self-pleasure modality is slightly different because it bridges sexual theory and sexual development, of transformation through touch and evoking your pleasure with more of the somatic-based approach like Peter Levine's somatic experiencing. So it bridges these two together into one modality. And so that was how I started. And I'm a facilitator of the self-pleasure modality. That's what I teach in my one-on-ones. And the course that we run is a 9-month self-pleasure practitioner course to certify coaches, mentors, yogis, nurses, teachers in the self-pleasure modality so that they can support their clients to go into that depth.
I imagine there might be somebody listening and hearing you say self-pleasure modality and think that you are teaching people to masturbate.
For sure. Let's go there.
Is that, I imagine that's not just it, that there's much more to self-pleasure. I imagine masturbation is included in that, but sometimes I think we limit ourselves by applying self-pleasure with only meaning masturbation.
Right. So if we think back to, so masturbation is when you have a goal, right? You sit down, you're going to masturbate. You have a goal. I'm going to have an orgasm, right? Masturbation is very goal orientated. If you look at, we're a very goal orientated society. And if you look at, for example, the anxious attachment pattern, just to bring one to kind of bring it all together in our conversation, when your anxious attachment pattern is activated, you are going towards a goal. You have, what, like, for example, a man who's been messaging you, who starts to get away from you, start to try to grab him. You have that goal of attaining him, and you really try to grasp him and bring him closer to you. And so masturbation is that. You go into masturbation for a specific outcome. Self-pleasure is not that. So self-pleasure is a space to connect back, so you can connect back to your sensations of your body. As I said before, we go underneath the emotion, which is the mind labeling what is happening, labeling the feeling, which is clusters of sensations that are happening in our body. So the sensations that are happening in your body, that's your life force, that's your eros. And so in the self-pleasure modality, you're creating space with intentional touch to learn how to feel. As babies, when babies are born, the first thing that they're done is they're put on top of the mother so you can have that skin to skin touch. And then you massage babies. And it's that transformation through touch is huge. And we lose that over time, and we end up outsourcing our pleasure. We end up outsourcing that to others, to our partner. Like, you're responsible for my pleasure. And so most people's nervous systems, to bring in the nervous system, most people's nervous system cannot tolerate a large amount of pleasure. And so when you begin to learn how to feel the sensations in your body, which is what you do through the self-pleasure modality, you begin to learn how to feel these sensations that move through your body and track these sensations that move through your body. And then you kind of become curious, like, okay, where is it going? Okay, maybe I'm feeling a little bit of arousal. And it's, you can spend a self-pleasure session clothed. You can be completely in the nude. You can have genital touch. You can have not genital touch. So it's more about connecting to your body and following that.
Thank you for that clarification. I think it's so important. And as a society, we have wisdom keepers like you who are now starting to get that information out more at a rapid rate. Thank you for the work that you're doing. In the description of this podcast, we will share the details for the February 13th Enlightenment in the Bedroom. Do we call it a workshop? It's like a gathering?
It's like a talk. It's like a talk. Get dressed up, like come in your heels, or if you want to wear a suit, like there's going to be yummy bites and there's delicious drinks and you come to socialize. Like it's like a luxe event that you come to. So
amazing. And we're going to share a unique We Deepen promo code for you to have a little network bonus for hearing about the experience here and registering through We Deepen. Elizabeth, thank you so much for your work. I could open up a can of worms on multiple different other conversation points. In this moment, I'm going to hold back now and give them, and maybe even plan a second podcast in the future. And I thoroughly look forward to continuing to deepen with you as colleagues, and also bringing Relate Fest back. We hosted the first Relate Fest in March of 2022. I am one of the co-founders of that brand and have now become the beneficiary of it. I plan to utilize Relate Fest to create what, the Comic-Con did for the comic industry, what Sundance did for the film industry. We, as professionals in the human connection arena, sometimes I call it the relationship industry. We need that one gathering point where we all get to come together and meet with the general public who are all interested in healthy relating. It's time for that. So I look forward to sharing. I think you would also be a phenomenal, I wrote this down, a phenomenal, teacher, facilitator in the Love Club as well. And I wrote down I'm like, if she was to teach a masterclass for the Love Club, I'd probably say to call it regulating your nervous system and dating.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Anything coming through that you want to share before we close out?
I feel complete. I enjoyed our conversation, and I thought you asked great questions. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Again, if you do enjoy this podcast, please do like, rate, subscribe, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it, helps bring them to these live events and experiences. Just share this podcast with your friends, invite them to join the Enlightenment in the Bedroom if you're in Miami, Florida, and you're listening to this February 13th of 2024. We'll be sharing more experiences with you. Don't you worry if you've missed that date. And because while I love connecting with you in this way through this podcast, what I love even more is bringing you together in person. And I love joining you for those experiences too. Until next time, bye for now. Love you.